What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler, and filling in once again for Gabe is Kenny Stubblefield. Why has Gabe been out 2 weeks, you might ask? Well, if you haven't listened on 92.9, if you haven't seen on any of Gabe's socials, he is officially a father as of last week. So,
Proud Papa.
yeah, so we're giving him some more time spent with Taylor and with Myers, who is his brand new baby son. So it's me and Kenny once again this week. Kenny, Thanksgiving, how was it?
Man, it was good. I was busy, man. I made the announcement after Myers was born that I was going to be officially representing him for all NIL opportunities, and the phone blew up. I'll be frank with you, man. Like,
getting in early.
Yeah, I had to put some parameters out on Twitter. I was like, listen, if you're going to bring some offers to the table, you got to come correct, man. I said, I need a house in Miami, number one.
First off.
And I need at least a couple of water cans with Myers' face on it. And if you're a Tiger fan and you're an NIL understander, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I just need these guys to come with some real stuff, man. But no, it was good. It was good. It was just busy taking phone calls and eating dinner with family and having a good time, man. How about yourself?
How many Thanksgivings did you have?
I only had one, dude. It was super slow. Yeah, it's interesting. We have family that comes in from out of town, and they came in from out of town, and it's like all the plans were so up in the air. Like It was like, I really don't know what we're doing, right? Like it's super strange, man. Like we're all kind of going through, our families are kind of going through these like influxes of like what are the new traditions for our families, right? Like I was talking to my barber about this a few days ago. When you grow up and you have all these older people in your family, those traditions are set and they're in place, and this is what you do every single year. You know it, it's there. This is what happens. Well, now all of those folks are starting to pass away, and so it just changes completely. And so we're still, both sides of the family are still in this like figuring out like what are the new traditions. And so that's kind of where even the last couple of Christmases have been, is what are the new traditions for our entire family.
So John, were you at your parents' house? Is that where y'all did
it? We did one Thanksgiving dinner with my dad's side of the family, and that was it. That was it. Yeah.
I had a lot.
I bet you did. You had a Friendsgiving the other night.
Yeah, we had a Friendsgiving, I guess that was 2 weekends ago. And then on Thanksgiving, we did my grandma's house. And then we did Anna Ruth's whole family on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And then Friday, we had my dad's side of the family over at my house, did steaks. That's great. That's it's a great switch up after you just did like back-to-back full-on Thanksgiving food to switch gears and go to steak. So we did steaks on Friday, and then
Sunday. Let me ask you this. Let's get some like context around this. Like, how many steaks? How long did it take to cook each steak? Was it made to order? Like, what does this look like?
So I don't know. We probably had 25 to 30 steaks, and we cooked them quick, probably 30 to 45 minutes. We cooked them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And made to order, whatever you want. We did,
Yeesh.
So my parents are weird. They're like well done steak people, which is such a red flag.
That's a big red flag.
So we did some of those for them, and then everybody else pretty much medium rare. I'm a medium rare guy, so I had to make sure mine was medium rare. But yeah, everybody got what they wanted. We did steak, and then Saturday kind of reset, chill, relax, just watch football, and then yesterday we had Anna Ruth's grandma's house on her dad's side, so 4 Thanksgivings.
Are you officially fooded out? Like, are you done?
I haven't eaten anything today.
Yeah.
Because, especially Friday, which I wasn't expecting to be that bad, right? I was like, it's no big deal. We already did 2 Thanksgivings yesterday. So we had steaks and potato, just kind of your normal steak stuff. And my aunt, for those that don't know, we're Italian, so Italian food is big in my family. My aunt makes the best manicotti you've ever had in your whole. And so she brings a big, gigantic pan of manicotti and like 3 desserts, and we just had an insane amount of. I think she brought like 4 different desserts. So it
Oh,
was Friday ended up being way, way worse than I expected it to be.
yeah. Yeah. Are
So
you so it's been such a weird time for me, like over the last couple of days, because for those of that most people don't know kind of like my health journey that I've been on this last year, um, sweets and sugar have been completely taken out of my diet for the better part of a year now. Going on about right about now, last year is when I started to experience some things that were some health situations that I was like, okay, I need to go get some stuff checked out. And it was a right around like kind of the mid-December time period where I was like, had to make some pretty drastic life changes for, in my diet. And one of those drastic life changes was that I took sugar completely out of my diet. Um, but I've been able to, according to my doctors, been able to start introducing sugar back in a little bit, just a small degree. It has been so difficult, man, because there's just been so many desserts and pies. And my dad's on about a 5-year streak of making the best turkey I've ever had in my entire life. Like it's
yeah,
phenomenal. For the longest time it was kind of hit or miss with him. Like it was like one year it was phenomenal, the next year it was like,
yeah.
not so much. He's on about a 5-year streak of just knocking out the park. But one thing he does well, I'm 43 years old, and he's been doing this since I was a baby, is he makes from scratch everything, pies, homemade pies, and every kind of pie you can think of. And um, he made all those pies this year, and it's been difficult, man. Like
Did you
I've
stay
had
away?
no,
No, there's no
I have
way.
I have had an insane amount of cherry pie in the last like 2 days, and I am feeling it, dude. I don't
I bet.
feel great. I'll be
Yeah,
honest with you. I don't feel good.
yeah.
Um, Let me ask you this: do you think it stopped me from eating cherry pie?
No,
Absolutely not.
you're not a quitter.
I'm not a quitter,
No,
but
you don't back down.
I am officially ready to be done. Like
Yeah,
I am. It has not been great for me, but
and that's the thing. That's the debate, right? Like at this point, do you just lean in for the next? Because
mm,
the next month is kind of shot.
it's
So it's
shot.
like, do you take the next couple weeks and just pump the brakes a little bit,
I think
or
I have to.
are you just like, let's just lean in for this next month?
Yeah. No, I think I need to pump the brakes because last year my issue was we had the Thanksgiving thing. So prior to Thanksgiving, obviously is Halloween, and we went nutso with Halloween candy in our house last year. So prior my I greased the pump, I oiled the pump up for cherry pie last year by eating an insane amount of Halloween candy. Then to prep myself for December, I ate an insane amount of Halloween candy throughout the month of December. I am calling it quits. I have no Halloween candy in the house. I went and really hit the gym hard today. I broke all of my running badges today for my Apple Health, which is not saying a whole lot because I'm not a runner, but I am back on the grind, and because I want to be able to enjoy December. I want to be able to
Yeah,
enjoy Christmas, but I got to take it easy in the interim, like
yeah.
during the during the break.
Yeah, and one thing I did forget on Wednesday, which you know this, I think we might have talked about it last year, but we did the turkey giveaway again, which is like the fifth or
Oh, sweet.
sixth year. So
Yeah.
I got to shout out my dad on that one. I mean, he's started with like 50, and we did 300 this year.
Where do you do it at?
The DeSoto County Dream Center. It's like
That's cool.
affiliated with our church. So 300 turkeys, deep frying all of them. It's a long day of cooking and a long week of just preparing stuff, getting everything ready for it. So we were able to do that again this year. 300. It's not just turkeys; it's full meals
Wow.
that we give away. But the turkeys are the hard work because we deep fry all of them that day. So
That's crazy.
yeah, 300 turkeys takes a long time. We got 30.
How many
Let's see,
deep fryers do you have?
like 30 going at one time.
And how long does it take to deep fry a turkey?
45 minutes.
Wow.
So I think they dropped the first one at like 6:30, and we finished around 3 or 3:30.
That's impressive work, man. That's incredible.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. But
Shout out to Mr. Fowler, man. I've met him one time in the many years that we have known each other. I've met him one time. I've been trying to get him on one of the shows at some point, but
you don't want. Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. I promise.
I've heard he's a little buck wild. It gets a little crazy sometimes.
Yeah. He's a wild card. We think Kenny's a wild card. He's a bigger one.
Yeah.
But also over this past week, let's jump into some Memphis basketball. They were in Maui, and I'm going to ask you this right off the rip, Kenny. How big, because I know it was, how big of a win was this tournament for Memphis?
I mean, it was a massive win, right? Like you get into that tournament. Obviously, anybody with a brain looked at the seeding and looked at the brackets and said they're not expecting Memphis to do much in this in this tournament. Like there were some phenomenal teams in this tournament, and they, or at least preseason phenomenal, high ranked teams in this tournament. You had Auburn, North Carolina, you had UConn, obviously, you had Iowa State. Michigan State wasn't ranked, but
they were still like top 35 in all the rankings coming into the tournament.
Michigan State is Michigan State, man. They're the bluest of blue bloods, right? Like, and so you had a really top heavy bracket, and then you had Colorado and Memphis, and who else was there? Shoot, a couple other teams.
I'm blanking right now too. I was thinking who to Colorado, but never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, just so I think the expectation, even by the Maui folks, were like, hey, let's bring this brand team in, like this branded team of Memphis that travels well, that has a lot of popularity across the country in terms of a fan base. Not expecting them to do much, and the fact that the Tigers were 2-1 on the weekend and
made it to the championship.
And made it to the championship. I don't think you can take anything away from this weekend as anything other than just overwhelming success for the Tigers.
Yeah, and I think if you told Memphis fans how it would turn out going into it, that Memphis would make it to the final game, like they would have been overwhelmingly happy about that. Going through UConn, going through Michigan State, which will be the two best wins that Memphis has all year. Like those were great wins that they had to have. But then you get to the championship game and you kind of get blown out by Auburn. And much like the tournament last year, you lose in the championship game, and it kind of leaves a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth, at least from what I've seen on socials. I don't personally agree with that, because I think you take that 100 times out of 100 how Memphis came out of that tournament 6-1 you look at those 3 wins they had in a row between San Francisco, UConn, and Michigan State, and like that is going to be Memphis's tournament resume right there. Like that's what they have. Yeah. And so those were very necessary games, especially when you look what's coming up. You still got solid games against Clemson and Virginia, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Like you still have some really good opportunities, but we talked about this probably several weeks ago. Memphis needed to make noise in this game to kind of prop themselves up early and to know that, okay, we can get some quality wins in this tournament. Not that we necessarily have to have them, but it's much better than, say, they lose that first game to UConn and they don't, they get some quad 2 or quad 3 wins in that tournament and don't have any marquee wins. Well, they were able to get those off the bat, and now you look at what they have for the rest of non-conference, and they've got a really good opportunity to continue building that resume. So, in my opinion, other than beating Auburn, which you really didn't expect to be there anyway, that's as good as it could have turned out for Memphis. Yeah. And yes, also some of the shine gets taken off because of what happened to UConn in the tournament. I get that. They lose to Colorado, they lose to Dayton, they go 0-3 in the tournament.
UConn finished last place in the Maui Invitational.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
But
do we really think UConn is going to stay down?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So at the end of the season, this win's going to look as good as it did when Memphis actually won the game.
Yeah, I mean, it UConn it was such an interesting, even lead up to that UConn game, because I had that interview I did with Dave Borges, the basketball insider, or the beat writer for I think CT Insider, the UConn beat writer. And even some of the things that he was saying about the UConn team, when I walked away from that interview, I was like, he doesn't. The thing that was so interesting to me is that he didn't know, and I think he was getting this from the fact that the coaching staff didn't know really what the identity of that UConn team was,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's one thing that's fair to say about this Memphis program is what their identity is already. This quickly into the season, you already know. And so I did walk away from it going, okay, well, maybe there's a chance, like maybe they have a shot. It is UConn, but maybe they have a shot against UConn. And ultimately they did, man. Ultimately, for 98% of that game, they dominated UConn. So yeah, I know there's a lot of Tiger fans that look at the Maui, the way that it ended, and say, "Oh, this is just a repeat of what happened last year in the battle for Atlantis." And I'll just say, I really do hope that people are able to look past the end results and look at the like dive deeper into the games and go, these are completely different situations. Right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, they lost by 14 points to the probably the best team in college basketball. But I walked away from that game thinking the Tigers, they had shots, man. Like, they were there the whole.
But it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about since the season started. Like, as of right now, Memphis is not built for a tournament style. Like, they're just not, because they're so top heavy. It's going to be really hard to perform that way night in, night out in a tournament atmosphere. But we've talked about it a ton. Just how
But
many
they're
minutes.
not going to have to do this again. They're not going to
No,
have
no,
to
no.
play 3 games in
Exactly, and
3 nights again.
that's what I'm saying. There's reasoning for that. I mean, you look
Yes.
at the minutes that Tyrese and PJ and Colby and these guys are playing, and the weight that's kind of put on their back,
Right.
because Memphis is such a top heavy roster. Like, getting up until this point is exhausting for a team like that that's playing that much. And I think you feel better prepared for it when you get to the conference tournament. Ultimately, if you get to the NCAA tournament, because you have so much basketball in between an early season tournament and then. But you coming in, 3-4 games into the year, into an early season, an in-season tournament, that stamina is not built yet. Like, these guys are hardly used to playing 30-plus minutes a game so far this year, and then you ask them to do that 3 games in a row, like, that's going to add up quickly.
3 games in a row, 3 nights in a row. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So I'm not saying I don't think that they can do that later in the season when it comes to conference tournament and NCAA tournament, because I think they'll be built up to it by then. But early season, like, that's tough for a team that's top heavy and is only a couple of games into the season. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not putting a ton of stock into that game. But I think even to your point, like, they didn't necessarily look like they didn't belong in that game. I think they were just beat up. I think they were just exhausted from the previous 2 games. And the first game being an overtime game against UConn. So it's it's a tough ask for a top-heavy team early in the season. And I think they'll be fine when it comes to that later in the year. We got some rankings today, Kenny.
Well, let's go through Maui even more. What are your impressions now, post Maui, of the Tigers' backcourt?
I think one of the best things about this, in my opinion, it is my tune didn't really change much.
Okay.
Because I think we had such a high viewpoint of them going into the tournament. It was like, what's going to happen in this environment when the competition steps up? What does this look like? And I mean, in my opinion, you come out feeling even more confident than you went into it. So, like, there's no negativity. I know we continue to hear the conversation about depth and are they going to add and are they going to, all these things. But at the end of the day, I think Memphis has a top 5 backcourt in the entire country.
100%.
Between Tyrese and between PJ, like, I think they have a top 5 backcourt,
Let's
and
not
I know
forget
we
Let's not forget Colby. I mean,
yeah,
Colby.
and Kobe as well. Kobe as well. Like it's they're really talented in the backcourt, and they have 2 guys especially that can take over games in Tyrese and PJ. And Colby's not a lead scorer like those two. I think
Just
both of the
just consistent.
yeah, just consistent. He's not going to be asked to be that player. But we talked about it last week after the UConn game, and it was like we're seeing that we already knew PJ could be that guy from the early season, and then we started seeing Tyrese could be that guy. And he's proven it. He definitely proved it in this tournament. I think he was named AAC Player of the Week today on Monday. So it's just like you have a 1A and a 1A in the backcourt. You can't ask for much better than that. And yes, we can continue to have the conversation about depth. We can continue to have the conversation about, do they need something else back there? I get that. But let's table that and just talk about how impressive those two have been and what they can carry this team to be. Because you have such an enviable situation where you have two number ones that don't need the ball share that most number ones in the country need. You have 2 guys that are unselfish ones, which I don't think you can replace the importance of that.
Not even just unselfish ones, but also are able to impact the game in more ways than just scoring the ball.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, Tyrese Hunter, his reputation coming in was that he was a guy who could catch a hot streak, from the perimeter, which we saw him in Maui do that.
Right.
But was also one of the better on-ball guard defenders in college basketball, and we've seen that throughout the season.
Yeah.
He is almost he is a shut the water off type of defender.
Absolutely.
You see PJ Haggerty, 6'3", thick kid who can get to the basket at any point in the game that he wants to. I mean, he was just dominant in the Maui Invitational. Just led the team in and he's a true sophomore, Christian. Like, it's wild how good he is.
He had 18 rebounds in those last 2 games.
Unbelievable.
Like,
that's you're speaking exactly to the point that I'm trying to make, is that both PJ and Tyrese are able to impact the game in ways that outside of just scoring the ball.
Yeah.
Right. They have bought in. They are bought in on the defensive end. They are willing to put their bodies on the line in the paint to get rebounds. They are they're able to lead the team offensively. Whatever the team needs, they can do. It is I just think it is coming out of that tournament. It was just you see the blueprint for the Tigers on what success will look like for them and what needs to happen for them. And that's the beauty of this. And that's why I say, when I hear Tiger fans say, look back at what happened last year, it's the same exact thing. And I'm like, no, it's not, because now we have a blueprint, and it is a successful blueprint. There is an identity for this team that I don't think that the Tigers from last year had the entire year. The entire year, I don't think they had it. And they have it already. How many games in? They're 6-1 now?
Yeah, 7 games in.
7 games in. I mean, that is I think it is all positives coming out of Laurie Walton practice facility right now, with what we saw out of Maui.
Yeah, so. No, I couldn't agree anymore. Like, you'll have your nitpickers and you'll have people that, say, look what UConn did throughout the remainder of the tournament. That makes that kind of an uglier win, and Memphis loses in the Auburn. Stop that. Like, that was as good as it could have went for Memphis. And today we finally got the AP Top 25. Memphis is in at 16. I want to run through all of Memphis's rankings right now between Ken Pom and Art Torvik, Net, AP Top 25.
Make some sense of all this, Christian.
And let's talk about this. I want to hear your opinion on this. Like I said, AP Top 25, the number 16, which is pretty close to what I was seeing predicted before they came out. Most people had them like 15, 16, 17, something like that. So I think that's definitely fair. Ken Pom, 31, a little bit lower than I expected, Looked like they were really going to be on the rise. Not quite. Pretty much stayed close to where they were going into the tournament.
I think almost the same exact spot. That Auburn game definitely, and I think honestly, UConn losing 3 games impacted, hurt that some.
Net ranking 31, and then Bart Torvik, I think they were the lowest in 34 in Bart Torvik.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, same thing with Bart Torvik rankings. I really thought that was going to climb because it looked like they were on the upswing. So pretty consistent. You got 16 in AP top 25 and then 31, 31, 34 when you go to like metric based rankings between Ken Pom, Bart Torvik, and the net rankings. What are your thoughts on all of these, where they stand right now?
I think I was a little bit surprised by that they were in the 30s. I guess I'll be frank with you, Christian. I don't know a lot about those metric systems, those metric rankings.
They're so deep, like there's so much to them.
There's so much to them. I think that it is, I think top 16, top 15 in the country in terms of the top 25 is sounds about right. I think that and Memphis experienced this a little bit last year with some of their big non-conference wins at the beginning of the season. Kind of realized, hey, Missouri actually sucks, and hey, Michigan's not that good, and hey, Arkansas was poo-poo. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was some some fall off in that regard, and so I think there might be some play in that when it comes to maybe some of the lack of jump in some of these metric based ranking systems. But it's funny, obviously we have a Discord with Bluff City Media, and so I went into the Discord when all the rankings and stuff dropped, and there's one member of our Discord who consistently every year around this time has this one meme that he puts up, and it's a meme of Bart Simpson at a chalkboard, and it's writing out like he's in trouble over and over again the same sentence, and that sentence is, I will not pay attention to net rankings until January. I will not pay attention to net rankings until January. And so I kind of adopted that myself, right? Like I think that the net rankings and the metric based ranking systems are so in depth, and so unless you were just a analytic nerd that wants to pay attention to that kind of stuff, I just think, it is what it is, man. Tigers, they got a game on Wednesday against Louisiana Tech, right? That's what matters more so than what Bart Torvik and, the net and Ken Pom says about where the Tigers are.
Yeah, I was surprised that they were that high in the top 25. Even though that's where I saw a lot of the projections landing, it took Memphis a lot longer to jump up into the top 25 last year.
Oh yeah,
it took some time for that. But they clearly deserved it. So to me, that's fair. Them at 16. Really,
how crazy were some of the conversations going into that Auburn game? There were like legit national media people saying that if the Tigers went out and beat Auburn in the championship game, that they could legitimately go from unranked to number 1 in the country within a matter of like a weekend.
I mean, it was on the table. It was definitely on the table. I mean, you beat 3 teams of that caliber in the same week, plus a solid team in San Francisco. Like the resume is just would have been top tier. It already is. It is really good for this early in the season, but with the win over Auburn, also like they would have had the best resume in the country. They would have had 2 top 5 wins in a week.
Right.
So, but as far as like the metric based rankings, the analytical rankings, when you look at Ken Pom and Bart Torvik, what's dragging them down so much is defensively. Adjusted efficiency in Bart Torvik, they're like 76, and defensive rating in Ken Pom, they're 59. So it's really their defense. Their offensive metrics are all really, really good. It's all defensively, which I don't think is extremely surprising, because you look at this team and I think they're really solid defensively. I think they just lack a lot of the shimmer defensively, like a lot of the glory defensively. You have 2 really high scoring guards, and so your offense is going to garner a little bit more attention. And defensively, you're smaller, and it's kind of more of a scrappy team than what you would label as an elite defensive, like long, get out in transition, block shots, affect passing lanes constantly. They're more of like a scrappy defensive team than they are an elite defensive team. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I think they're scrappy defensively, and I'm seeing the bones of an elite defensive team
I think it's definitely possible.
As they get further into the season, as Penny's able to kind of tighten up, kind of figuring out like how to mobilize and utilize those guys in their best ways possible. I do think that they have the bones to be an elite defensive team. But it's crazy because, like, you think about even those exhibition games against North Carolina and Alabama, and you go, man, coming out, I think most fans were looking at that game, those two games, and saying defensively they could hang with Alabama and North Carolina. It was offensively, it was like, ooh, a struggle, right? And now you look at it 7 games into the season, and they are an elite offensive team in college basketball, and their defense it's not elite, it's not bad, it's good. It's just not up to the same level as their offensive productivity. It's pretty
not what we expected.
It's been an interesting flip, right?
Yeah, definitely. You got anything else basketball related? Because I'm at the flip on you right here.
Let's go. Let's flip.
Okay. AP top 25. Can you guess who else is in the top 25? It's been a long, winding roller coaster of a road, but the Memphis football team now sits at number 25 in the country after knocking off number 17, Tulane. And it was a great win, but we're not going to sit here and recap this whole game or anything like that. My big question for you, where was this at? That's the big thing coming away from this game, because you had, like we said, it was an ugly season. Memphis got the 10 wins in the regular season. Nothing negative you can say about that. But it was a lot of up and down, ugly wins, a big loss against UTSA, a team that they shouldn't have lost against, and they literally saved their best for last. They played their best game, bar none, of the season in the final week of the season. And it just kind of leaves the question, where was it?
Yeah, I saw a lot of Memphis fans. I saw a lot of Memphis fans responding to people publicly on Twitter and X this week saying, this win was great, but it kind of pisses me off more than it does anything else, right?
It does.
Because it's like, where was this? Like, where? And it's funny because, like, the line, the line ending at 15.5 in Tulane's favor was just, it was absurd. Like, not in a way of, I know there's a lot of folks that were like, there's no way Memphis is going to lose by 2.5 or 2 touchdowns plus, to this Tulane team. And I think a lot of us thought there's a really good chance they could, man. They were in wars with teams that with bad teams that Tulane beat by 40 points. You know what I'm saying? Like it was, and I know we're not proponents of football math. It's not like, Memphis went and had a squeaker against Charlotte and Tulane beat Charlotte by 70. We're not going to sit here and say, well, football math tells us that Tulane's going to beat Memphis by that much, right? Like that you don't play that game. That's not really how college sports works. But I wouldn't have been surprised based on kind of what we had seen with the Tigers. Even though, listen, dude, 10 wins is awesome, right? Like 10 wins is great. It's a great season. It's a fantastic season. But again, I would not have been surprised to see Tulane come in and because Tulane was playing for something, Tulane had everything on the line, everything. In terms of
college football playoff, because they were locked into the conference championship.
That's what I mean in terms of college football playoff. And so, I don't know, man. I know a lot of folks were saying, wouldn't surprise me if Memphis comes in and is competitive with Tulane. Turns out they were more than competitive. They dog walked them.
They really did. They dominated this game. And I don't want to walk through the game too much. I just want to hit 2 points really quick, and then I want to have another conversation with you about this team. 2 really big things I took from this game. First, they shut down one of the best running backs in the country as far as numbers go this year with Mekhi Hughes. He had no chance. 9 carries, 15 yards. Couldn't do
that. Is, dude, how? I don't. He is so talented.
Yeah,
How
and
did they?
it doesn't make any sense.
Was it a scheme? You're a football guy. Was it a scheme thing, or was it just just they out physical the trenches?
It just looked like an effort thing to me. It
Yeah,
just looked like an effort. It just looked like Memphis was really out to prove something and felt like they had something to prove. And they did. So they shut down the running game completely. 18 carries,
unbelievable.
57 yards for an offense that has been very reliant on the run game this year. And Memphis ran all over them with Mario Anderson Jr. My second observation,
And let's not forget Greg Duozier.
that's where
My
that's where
bad.
I'm going.
My bad.
So the second observation is I think they used Greg DeRosier like they planned on using Sutton Smith all year. 8
Yes.
catches, 84 yards. He had the great touchdown catch to start the scoring for Memphis. I think this was the Sutton Smith plan all year.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it totally opened up this offense with having that dynamic between a back that you were really targeting in the passing game in Greg DeRosier, and then Mario Anderson just running over everybody through the tackles. Like this is what Memphis's offense was supposed to look like from the beginning of the year. This was the plan, to have the two-back system, to keep defenses on their toes, and really center your offense around those two guys.
Yeah.
And then use Rock and Demir as kind of these supplementary pieces. And I don't mean that negatively, like they're afterthoughts. It was just like the focus and the center is going to be on the two backs, and that's going to open everything up for Rock and Demir. That's going to change the way that teams have to game plan for us. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to see it until the final week of the season, because it really kind of leaves you wanting more in terms of what could have been. And that brings me to, are we just watching a rewind? It just feels like Groundhog's Day. It feels like the exact same way that we left the 2023 season, because it was kind of the up and down, rocky roller coaster of a year. They looked really good at times. They looked really bad at times.
Yeah.
And they figured it out towards the end of the year. They got a really good win in the bowl game against Iowa State. And that kind of led to the excitement of this year, in part. I know a lot of it was the roster, but it was also the way that the season ended. Beat a Power 5 team in a bowl game. I can say Power 5 because it was still Power 5 last year. But you beat a team like Iowa State, who was really solid throughout the season, in a bowl game, and it brought the momentum over. And now we're sitting here with this roller coaster, rocky, up and down year that we'll still have a bowl game tacked on the end of it, but this was a 10-win regular season.
Yeah.
And it ended with a win over a top 20 opponent in Tulane, who had really been dominating the conference. So it's just it feels like here we go again. And I don't know. I don't know how we go in the next season, and we don't have to talk about that right now because it's kind of irrelevant at this point. But does it give a little more pause going into the next season of let's see how it starts from the beginning? Or does it give us, does it give Memphis fans the same juice going into the 2025 season that Memphis was able to close out the year like this? I don't know. It just feels like repeat. It feels like the same thing as last year.
Let me give my thoughts on this. And I said this, I think, on Twitter this past week and got roasted for it. If this is Groundhog's Day, give it to me every year. Give it to me every year. When I say Groundhog's Day, I don't mean not winning a conference championship, not having the opportunity to go to the college football playoffs. But if you can give me 10 wins in the AAC or 10 wins in whatever conference they're in a regular season, there will be, if you can do that year after year after year after year, there will be conference championships and college football playoff appearances in that. I think, and listen, I want to be careful in how I say this, because I recognize that the Tigers didn't play a hard schedule. They were ranked, I think, bottom of Division I football in terms of strength of schedule because of their conference. But they are a weird conference schedule, and I think some real shady stuff with Army happening with the conference, bringing them over with the schedule they gave them away from being in the conference championship game. Army will never do this again. They will never have the schedule they have. the hardest game of their conference season is not even considered a conference game because of the AAC with Navy. Like, Army is in this game not because they're not talented, but because they played absolutely the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the AAC, and they beat the brakes off every one of them. You saw them get tested against Notre Dame just like Navy did and got smoked.
Yeah.
Right? I think that if you tell me that we can sit here as Tiger fans and say Groundhog's Day means every year 9 to 10 wins in the regular season with a potential to be in the conference tournament or conference championship with the potential to be in the college playoffs, I'm cool with that every single year.
Yeah.
It didn't happen this year and it's disappointing, but I'm okay with that. If this is Groundhog's Day, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the only thing that makes it a hard pill to swallow, right? Is you haven't had a chance to win the American in weeks. Like, it was just known that
Right.
it was off the table. If there was the hope of that, I think the end of this season would have been a lot more exciting for fans. But it was just so after that UTSA game, it was just so done. It was just like, there's no way they're not going to make it. That's their second loss.
Because we knew what Army's schedule looked like the rest of the way. They had nobody.
And we also vastly assumed that they would lose to Tulane, which was I don't think was an unfair assumption.
Right.
But they just didn't really have anything to play for. There was nothing to cause excitement because there was no chance to get in the championship game. But I am in agreement with you. Like, you keep going 10-2 in the regular season, it's going to come.
It'll happen. It'll happen more times than it won't happen. That's what I think. You know what I'm saying? So if you're telling me we can, like, if the standard is 9 to 10 wins at the University of Memphis, I'm telling you, they will be in many, many, many conference championships, and they will have the opportunity to play in many college football playoffs during that time period. And so listen, man, like, yes, am I disappointed the Tigers didn't make it to the championship game this year or to and they won't have an opportunity, even though AAC Commissioner Tim Pernetti, whatever his name is, came out and said that Memphis should be considered to be a at-large bid for the college football playoffs. But it's not going to happen this year. And is that disappointing? Absolutely. Is it disappointing that Seth is going to leave with all the record books in his pocket without a single AAC championship, without any kind of hardware, like that? Yes, that's disappointing. This team, with the depth and the wealth of age that they had, the seniors that they had on this team that were, great players for this team this year. Is it disappointing that this team, this iteration of the Memphis Tigers, didn't get a chance to play in the championship? Yes. But, man, if you tell me every year 10-2, 9-3, I'm good on all that.
Yeah, and one of the funniest things about this year is that there is a very legitimate path for Memphis. Not obviously they're not going to the championship game, but they could end like the final end of season, end of college football season rankings. They could
they could be the one ranked team in college football in AAC.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's funny because you think, okay, if Tulane beats Army, they might sneak back into the top 25, but say they lose a bowl game, they probably wouldn't be ranked. Memphis wins their bowl game and Army loses to Tulane, then Memphis is going to end the entire college football season as the highest ranked AAC team, which is hilarious to think about. But which
is why I think yes, the standards should be conference championships, but it's so there's just so much to it, right? Like, I'm a firm believer, and you just go out and you win games. Now, they lost to UTSA. Absolutely. And that was horrific. I was so frustrated because it felt like the margin of error the Tigers had this year was slim to none. And they came out against UTSA and looked like they just didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it looked like
the truth of the matter, like, the reality of the situation is you can probably only lose one conference game a year.
That's right.
That's it.
They could have gotten past that Navy game. They could have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All they had to do is beat UTSA and they would be in the conference championship right now. And that's what makes it even more frustrating, is because you look at that game and everybody kind of knew it right then. Like, that was it. That was the season. And they were right. It was. They beat UTSA. they're playing for a conference championship, and then after that, roll the dice. Who knows? You need some other people to lose to have a chance at college football playoff. Highly, highly unlikely with, UNLV and Boise State and all these other teams, but you're right there. You're one of those 3 or 4 teams that's being considered, and that's all Memphis fans can really ask for. Yeah. So, Kenny, we're going to take a quick break. We got a jam-packed Hot 3 coming up, full of college football in the NFL. So, quick break, and we'll be back on the other side with the Hot 3.
If you had a redraft right now, would Jalen Wells go in the top? Would Jalen Wells go in the first round?
Yes.
How high do you think that is? I'm curious about this because we're very jaded. We're very biased, me and you, but also everybody else involved in the chat is obviously here listening to the Grizzlies.
Oh, in this draft, like lottery. If he keeps playing to this level, I mean, easily hands down first round pick. And unless someone else starts going crazy, he would be a lottery pick.
I think top 15, top 18 are 100%. A lock. Can't be overstated how much he helps to go to a good team, though. And that's the biggest thing is when you don't have to create yourself. And that's what these other guards and these other players, they're having to create their own shot. Jalen Wells doesn't have to right now because he has a lot of good players around him.
If he had played to this ability on a bigger stage in college, I don't think it's crazy to see him as a lottery pick.
Tune in to the Grizz 901 postgame show, live after every Grizzlies game on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Remember the conversations that people were having of, is the team better without Ja?
I never entertained those.
Well, no, I didn't either.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, they were humorous to me. What a difference he makes when he's on the floor of just
everything.
Everything. From the moment you step on the floor thinking we can win this game or we're going to win this game.
It's not just a skill. Like there's an it factor that those guys have. That when they're playing and when it's going on, there's just a different vibe, there's a different feel. What he embodies in and of himself, it changes every single thing that happens on the floor, but it also changes everything that happens in the crowd. His it factor, his superstardom, and then the ability to back it up with how he plays.
Tune in to the Night Court podcast with your hosts, Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight, on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Let's get it.
Are you ready? Are you ready to get back into it?
I accidentally hit the button.
You were kind of leaning back there.
Well, I hit the button and I'm ready to go though. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Hold on, let me find this. There we go. Hot 3. We're ready.
There it is.
Let's do it. Listen, bro, first topic is it's a crazy rivalry week, right?
Dude, craziest one I can remember.
How many? Have you ever seen? Flag planting has been a part of college football for a long time.
It's pretty rare.
Is it?
It's pretty rare.
I feel like I've seen it a lot.
Baker Mayfield is like the number one example.
Yeah.
Against Texas, but everybody was in the same vein this week. Everybody was like, we're planting flags, and it understandably so was not received well. Like, I cannot remember a week of college football with this many fights.
Which one was the worst one to you?
Michigan, Ohio State, you had cops pepper spraying folks.
Okay, let me ask you this, bro. Did they cross a line, pepper spraying?
I think that's too much. Which I know it got pretty rough. Like, can't lie, it got pretty rough. Like, there were punches being thrown and people acting crazy. But with coaches and cops in there and stuff, I think you can get that stuff separated without pepper spray. And that seems a little too far to me. Like, it's all emotion, man. Like, you got a team in Ohio State who's the number 2 team in the country who's playing a really not good at all Michigan team, and Michigan ends up beating them. It's the biggest rivalry game in college football. A lot of emotion. Then you get the flag plant from Michigan. Ohio State's a very prideful school. It's one of the most historic schools. in all of college football, and so is Michigan for that matter. But like, there's going to be a lot of emotion. Like, something's going to happen, and you just got to get it separated. You can't just be pepper spraying a bunch of college kids who just played a 60-minute like that was a hard fought Big Ten Michigan Ohio State football game. It was tough. That was a tough game. And so
it was so interesting to me. Like, it felt like this was the day and age of TwitterX.com playing its, like, showing its ugly head, because it felt like it was like every game after the Michigan Ohio State game was, how can we one up that fight? Right? Like, dude, it was so weird. Like, I thought the lamest one was Arkansas and Missouri got into a fight at the end of their game. I'm like, what are y'all doing? Y'all don't even know each other, bro.
It ain't like that. But who all did? Okay, so you had Michigan Ohio State was like the big one because of
the big one,
that game and what it is. You had North Carolina and NC State, which ended the same way, flag plant that turned into a fight. Which, from North Carolina's perspective, understandably so, like, they've going through all this stuff with Mac Brown and just in an emotional state as a team right now, so that makes sense. Florida State ended in a flag plant fight. Arizona State and Arizona ended with a pitchfork plant.
Yeah,
I don't think that one didn't get too.
That didn't get physical. That didn't get too crazy. No.
I think there's one. Auburn and Alabama was like the whole game, which is also not surprising. It's the Iron Bowl, so it was a fight-filled rivalry weekend. I mean, it was.
I've never seen anything like that before.
How do you feel about it? Because you have like the go-to cliches, like as it's happening, the announcers are like, "Oh no, this is
terrible for college football."
Like, that's just the go-to. That's what you say. I'm going to give my opinion. I want to hear yours. Like, there is a point where it goes too far. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, like, isn't this what we all did growing up, playing ball, like playing football, playing basketball? I don't know how many pickup games did you have that ended in fights? I would say pretty much every backyard football game we ever had, like with my friend group, ended up in fights. Like, it's just, to me, it is like football. It's not in its purest form. I understand that sounds contradictory, but it kind of is. Like, because it's just for the love of the game, right? Like, when you're a kid playing in the backyard, you don't have anything to fight over. Like, you ain't playing for nothing. You're just playing. But it's just the emotion of, like, I want to win. I don't want to lose. I don't, it's competition. Like, it's competitive. And so there is a point where it goes too far. Absolutely. Throwing punches, ripping helmets off, like stomping people. That is bad for the game of college football. That's too far. But like a pushing and shoving and, just getting physical and just those competitive juices, like, it's the purest form of the game. Like it's emotion. It's what the game is all about.
I might be totally wrong on this, but this is my opinion on it. One of the things that we hear a lot about and people bemoaning college sports now is that everybody's just a mercenary, right? Like, you got all these guys who are just mercenaries, all about money, just going to a place that's a free agency, unrestricted free agency. It's not college sports anymore. Oh, where is college sports at?
Right. There you go. That's the pride. That's the pride in it.
There you go. Because not the fights, but it's why the fights happened.
Right. Pride.
It's the pride of not only, playing your game, but it's knowing the intensity of the rivalries, knowing the history of the schools that are competing against each other. It's the fan bases that are freaking out on each other. It's all the trash talk that happens prior. It's all the stuff that goes down during the week of. Like, it's all those things. It's the history of these games, the Iron Bowl, the Michigan Ohio State game. It's the history of all that tells you this is still college sports, man. Right. This is what this is. And yes, if they get into a fight, I can guarantee you this, man. Like, there's nobody that's going to sit there and be like, no fan base is going, oh, there's a bunch of thugs out here. No, man, they were defending the honor of their institution is what I felt like. I might be wrong on this, but that's what I felt like. And to me, it was more so a saying of people have been crying about the fact that college sports is dead.
Yeah.
I think this last week of college football tells us, man, college football is alive and well, dude. College sports is alive and well.
It is boiled down why we love college football. All the reasons you said, like playing for pride, playing for your school. Yes, we know money is involved now, but like this shows that there's still pride taken in that school and for the uniform that you put on and for defending your home field and all those things. And that's why we love college football. So once again, there's a point where it is too much.
Yeah.
But outside of that, if it doesn't go too far, I love it. I think it shows everything about football that we love.
I have a question for you about. Let's go to the Michigan-Ohio State game real quick. Someone was following Ryan Day after the game with a camera.
Yeah.
Him being interviewed, to the fight breaking out, to his reactions to the fight breaking out. Is Ryan Day a broken coach, or is he the guy? Because I know there's a ton of Ohio State fans that are saying, "Dude, you can't beat Michigan." Right? Like I saw a clip going around of there. I think it was back in the day. Urban Meyer was the coach, and he was playing a video game.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And then he passed it off to Ryan Day, and it's this driving a bus, and Ryan Day takes control of the controls, and he drives it off a cliff.
Off the cliff. Yeah.
Like, is he the guy? Like, what are your thoughts?
That's such a hard conversation because what was said about Jim Harbaugh forever. You know, like he couldn't win. He couldn't get that big game, and then ultimately it happened. So I don't know. It's difficult. I think he did a terrible job with selecting his quarterback. I think he got who he wanted.
But this was so different. Michigan was terrible this year. They're not good. They're not a good team.
And there is a difference in that. So I don't know. It's a hard conversation to have. It really is, because
I mean, have you ever heard an announcing team or announce a broadcast team on a nationally televised game go, I don't know what Ohio State is doing offensively. Like, I don't know what the plays they're calling. I don't know why they're not attacking downfield. I don't know why they were legitimately in the middle of the game questioning, like, very strongly, stronger than I've heard many broadcasting teams do, questioning what they were doing. Like, what is this team doing right now?
Yeah, it's fair. And I mean, if I had to say, like, I would say no. I don't think he is. Like, he just hasn't proven that he can win that big game. But I probably I might have said the same thing with Harbaugh 4 or 5 years ago, you know, after his first couple of years at Michigan. So it is a difficult conversation, but at least from my opinion, it's like, look, Ohio State, especially this year, Ohio State was supposed to be their year.
This is their
with
year.
Everything that they added with, I mean,
$20 million NIL fund.
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Downs, like they got some of the best transfers in the entire country to come in.
Freshman Jeremiah Smith.
Smith is incredible. Carnell Tate in his sophomore year, like they're loaded everywhere. There's not a position where they're not loaded, except quarterback. I think Ryan Day did a terrible job. He got to handpick his quarterback, and he picked Will Howard, who had never done anything really at K-State, who had never been impressive, in my opinion. So I think he flubbed it. I think he flubbed picking his quarterback. What if he picked Cam Ward? If he picked Cam Ward, they're
national champion. I mean, they're undefeated. They're
probably walking to a national championship. In all honesty, like if Cam Ward is getting to sling the ball to Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith,
dude,
they're winning.
And handing the ball off to Quinshon Judkins, like
and
what are we?
Travion Henderson, like they're probably walking everybody down. But he got Will Howard, and he's just not exceptional. He's a game manager. He's solid, but he's not exceptional.
Yeah.
Most of the time, he's not going to lose you a game. Most of the time, but he's never really going to win you a game either. And that's not what you should. I mean, that's not.
It's not how Ohio State rolls.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, look at what they've had. I know they haven't panned out in the NFL, but you look at all their quarterbacks: Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud, J.T. Barrett, Cardale Jones, Dwayne Haskins. Like, typically they have big-time playmakers at the quarterback position. And I think Ryan Day screwed that one up, and I think they're paying for it. I do not think they'll win a national championship this year because of that. I don't think they have the playmaking quarterback that can win them a game.
I know we're going to get into this next week once the new rankings come out and all that kind of stuff, once the college football playoffs are kind of set after the championships and all that. But just you don't have to discuss it any further than I'm just going to ask you right now, who's the favorite in your mind?
Whew. This might be the hardest year that you could ever ask me that, because typically I'd feel pretty confident.
Right.
I think it's got to be Georgia.
Whoa.
I really do. I mean, they have the pedigree.
Georgia Tech just took them to 8 overtimes.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Wow.
And I don't feel confident in that. I'm just saying, like, looking at everything else, I would probably say Texas, but Georgia manhandled Texas. So I can't really say that in good faith.
There's only one undefeated team in all of college football. And you're telling me Oregon is not it?
I don't think Oregon wins it.
Dylan Gabriel is a Heisman Trophy candidate.
I love Dylan Gabriel. I don't think they've got the juice defensively.
Whew.
I don't think they can stop.
How crazy is it? The first year of a 12-team college football playoff, there is almost literally so much parity in the top 12. It's crazy, man.
Crazy. It's absolutely insane. And I can't wait for this weekend.
Tell me this isn't fun, though. Tell me this is not what it's all about.
Better. It is so much better. I love it. Love it. But
all right, let's get to the next topic. Look at the Heisman coming up before the college football playoffs start, which I think sucks because there's only one guy who's going to be in the college football playoffs that is a legitimate candidate for the Heisman Trophy this year. But we've got a lot of debates going on. Dylan Gabriel's in the mix, like he's out there. You know, this is a quarterback friendly award. He's the only quarterback right now that anybody's talking about. But your two main guys that all the sports books and everything are talking about are our guy Travis Hunter from Colorado and Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Me and you talked about this prior, and we said let's talk about who's going to win the Heisman. And I said, okay, you pick one of those two guys, and I'll pick the other, and we'll make our argument for him. So tell me why you think Travis Hunter is going to win the Heisman Trophy.
I think first off, is it not insane that it's not going to be a quarterback? Like
it will not be a quarterback.
It's either Travis Hunter or Ashton Jeanty is insane. Like I can't remember the last time a quarterback wasn't a serious contender. Like even when Devontae Smith won a couple years ago, there was quarterbacks in the mix. But for me with Travis Hunter, it really is kind of an easy argument. And I love Ashton Jeanty. Like I have loved Ashton Jeanty.
There's nothing easy about this argument, Christian.
No, there's not. There's not. But the thing about Travis Hunter is to see someone do it at this level on both sides of the ball has quite literally
never happened.
At least in my lifetime, and since TVs haven't been black and white, there's been nobody to do it like this. I mean, you got to think Charles Woodson won the Heisman, and they called him someone that played both sides of the ball.
He was a cornerback.
He was a defensive player that got in sometimes on offense and played.
Right.
Travis Hunter is a legitimate two-way player who I think his NFL upside is just as high either way. I think he has the potential to be a Pro Bowler / All-Pro at both positions. And I think he would have to focus on one. I'm saying that if he fully focused on wide receiver, I think he could be a Pro Bowl All-Pro type player. And I think if he fully focused on corner, that he could be a Pro Bowl All-Pro type player. Like he has, I mean, he's a freak of nature. Like there's a reason he was the number one player coming out of high school. He's a freak. 92 catches, 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns, 31 tackles, 11 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, a forced fumble. He's everywhere. I mean, he's everywhere. He is legitimately a top 5 wide receiver in college football and a top 5 corner in college football. That is absurd. Like that has never happened. That is not a thing to be that good at two positions, and especially corner. Corner is one of the hardest positions in all of football.
Right.
And he plays two. He's not just playing. He's not just solely focusing on that position. And so for someone who can break the game offensively and defensively, like that is what the award is, just the best player in college football. And someone who's top 5 at two positions, it's hard not to call that person the best player in college football.
And let's not forget, 2 years ago, Christian, Colorado was 1-11 on the year. And this year, 2 years later, after 2 seasons of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and Coach Prime, they were knocking at the Big 12 championship and potentially a college football playoff berth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible work, man.
Yeah.
That's incredible work. So you're not going to get any argument from me that Travis Hunter deserves to be the Heisman Trophy candidate, except for the fact that there's a guy in college football right now that is doing something that nobody has ever done except for one other guy back when TVs were black and white, when they wore shoulder pads that came up to the top of their heads, and Barry Sanders, who was legitimately one of the greatest running back to ever live. Ashton Jeanty is doing things that he that nobody's ever done this year since him. I mean, 312 carries, 2,288 yards, 28 touchdowns on the ground. Christian.
Over 7 yards a carry.
Over 7 yards a carry. This guy is Boise State is in the college football playoff picture because of one guy, and that guy is Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
He is. I talk about this all the time. I talk about NBA dominance, right? And there are players that are fantastic at basketball in the history of NBA basketball. But there is one guy who is the most dominant player in the history of NBA basketball, and that person is Shaquille O'Neal. And the reason I say he's the most dominant player I've ever seen play is because he had one move. Back to the basket, over the shoulder, baby hook, or dunk, right? Everybody knew what Shaq was going to do, and they couldn't stop him.
Couldn't stop it.
Ashton Jeanty is that plus to me in college football this year because he's doing it in multiple different ways. He's broken more tackles this year. His ability to break tackles, his ability to withstand the punishment, knowing that defenses are targeting him in every single game that they play. They're bringing 8 in the box, 9 in the box, 10 in the box. They are cover zeros the entire way and just focusing on him. And he's breaking tackles left and right. He's banging 70-yard touchdowns twice, 3 times a game. Like, he is just an incredible running back. And the reason why this season is so crazy to me is because defenses know he is the only shot they have. Like, he is the only guy they have.
Yeah.
And he's still doing it.
Yeah.
And he's leading. Boise State is 10-1 and about to play in the college football playoffs, ranked in the top 15 in the country because of one guy. And if the Heisman Trophy award is about a guy who is most important to his team and the success of his team, how do we not give that to Ashton Jeanty?
Yeah. Yeah, you want to hear something crazy?
What's that?
In 5, speaking of just like carrying the team, in 5 of the last 6 games, he's had 30-plus carries.
He had 37 carries last week.
Since the Hawaii game, 31, 33, 31, 34, 32, 19, 37. That's an insane workload. And he's had on the year 5 200-plus yard rushing games. Insane. Great argument, Kenny. Great argument. I can't even give you any notes on that one.
And I mean, I know that people are going to say, well, their schedule is so trash and they didn't play anybody.
He did it against the best teams.
Bro, he did it in the only undefeated team in the country, Oregon, the second week of the year, 25 carries, 192 yards, averaging 7.7 yards per run.
And they only lost that game by 3 points.
And they lost by 3 points. Dude, Boise State has no business being in a game against Oregon, the number 1 team in the country. And it was because of Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
And again, and I know this is not a part of the conversation. You've talked about Travis Hunter's, what he's going to look like in the NFL. I truly believe this. Ashton Jeanty will have a better NFL career than Travis Hunter. Because
I don't fully disagree with that, because I think you draft Ashton Jeanty, he's pretty much a locked-in Pro Bowler.
He's a locked-in Pro Bowler, immediate day 1 starter for your team.
Yeah.
The problem with Travis is an elite athlete in every single way. And yes, he's going to have to concentrate on one specific role. And I think that's going to set him back a little bit because he's not had to do that because he's far and above a better athlete than anybody else on the field in college football. That ain't going to be the case in the NFL.
Yeah. All right, Kenny, last topic. Then we'll roll.
I want to know, those who are listening, in the comments below, who won that argument, me or Christian? Is it going to be Ashton Jeanty or is it going to be Travis Hunter winning the Heisman? I think we both gave pretty compelling arguments.
It really is. You asked me this earlier just to go behind the scenes, like, who do you think it should be? And I was like, I'm 50-50. Like, legitimately.
You're not going to be upset either way. What if it's Dylan Gabriel? What if they go with Dylan Gabriel?
They won't. That's great. I think it's legitimately one of those years where they can give it to either guy and they made the right choice, and that does not ever happen.
When does that happen? That's been a very long time since that's happened. All right, we are winding down the NFL season in terms of the regular season. We got how many more weeks? 4 more weeks? 5 more weeks left?
Five. I think 5 more weeks.
5 more weeks. Right now, who's the NFL MVP?
This is another tough one. You want me to? I'm gonna start you off with something crazy.
Okay.
If it was just based on who is playing the best football in the NFL right now, not on records, not on who's going to win the division, who's going to be the top seeds in the playoffs, Joe Burrow has played the best of anybody in the NFL so far this year.
Whoa.
He leads the league in passing yards. He leads the league in passing touchdowns. He's only thrown 5 interceptions. He has a 68% completion percentage.
Wow.
He's been incredible. He's been the best player in the league this year. Like I said, leading the league in yards and touchdowns with only 5 picks. He's been insanely good. Unfortunately for him, his defense is terrible. I saw something the other day. Quarterbacks at this point in the season that have 30 touchdowns and less than like 10 interceptions or something like that. It was basically Rodgers, Manning, Breeze, and Brady. The worst any of those teams' records were was Aaron Rodgers at 9-3. Joe Burrow and the Bengals are 4-8.
Oh my God!
Because they are 2-4 in games when they score 30+ points. The rest of the NFL is 75-3.
Wait. Say that again. They're 2-4 when they've scored 30+ points.
The rest of the league, when they have scored 30+ points, is 75-3.
In the NFL, if you score 30 points, you should
win.
You should win every game.
Yeah, and they haven't. So based off of that, like to me, Burrow's played better than anybody in the NFL. Obviously, he's not
in the conversation.
He's not in the conversation. Right at this point, it's really Saquon, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. And that's tough. That one's tough also because 2 weeks ago I would have said Lamar Jackson, but the Ravens have really not looked as great the last couple weeks.
Yep.
And so right now I'm gonna have to go chalk with the betting lines and say Josh Allen is the favorite. Not
Saquon.
They're not going to give it to a running back. I mean, Saquon's been incredible, and he's changed that team completely. And he's on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record, which is
crazy
to think about, especially in this like pass happy league that we have now. But it's a quarterback award. We know that. And you look at Josh Allen, someone who's been maligned for turnovers and interceptions and making bad plays. And this year he has completely turned that around. 2,700 yards, 20 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 330 rushing yards, and six rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's played a completely different style this year. He has not taken as many chances, not made as many mistakes because of that. And the Bills look like one of the few teams that could win a Super Bowl. It's a hard argument right now because, like I said, Lamar's been playing incredible. I think he has 29 passing touchdowns and maybe 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns. Probably going to go over 1,000 on the ground again. Over 3,000 passing yards already. He already has the second most passing yards he's had in a season this year. He's like, I think 500 or 600 behind his his personal best. So he's played incredible, but when a team's not playing as well, especially towards the end of the season, it's going to be hard for that team to win the MVP unless he absolutely turns it on. And so right now, I think Josh Allen is the favorite, and it's not as exciting. This MVP race has felt a little slow, but it felt that way last year as well. It was much slower last year. I don't think anybody was really deserving of MVP. Nobody played just out of their minds last year.
Right.
And I think you have some, like Lamar's playing out of his mind this year. I think he's been much better this year than he's been last year when he won MVP. Josh Allen's been incredible. Saquon Barkley's been incredible. Derrick Henry's been incredible. Burrow's been incredible. I think you have a lot more competition this year. And as we all know, these last 5 games are really going to decide it. Like who stays hot in these last 5 games. We're officially in December, so we have entered like the best part of NFL season. The next month and a half, 2 months.
The weather's changed. It's
go time.
Let me ask you this: where is Baltimore going to end up? I mean, because dude, Lamar and Derrick have been dominant this year as a duo. Where are they going to end up?
I mean, the Steelers have played really good ball. They have a tough schedule ahead. The Ravens have a tough schedule ahead. I'm gonna say right now, Baltimore's a game and a half out. They've lost to Pittsburgh, but they do have another matchup coming. I'm gonna say Baltimore ends up winning the North. Pittsburgh gets the wild card.
Yeah, because they're playing the Giants and the Browns the rest of the way. Let me see what the Steelers are.
I think the Ravens will ultimately end up pulling out the North. But I'm not going to.
They got to play the Eagles next. So the Steelers are playing the Browns, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and then the Bengals. They could, I mean, because we know what Joe Burrow and the Bengals do at the end of the year. I mean, I know they're not great this year. It's a different team this year, but Joe Burrow's teams have always tended to be like giant killers at the end of the year. So I could see.
Yeah, I think Baltimore probably pulls it out, but I'm not calling them a Super Bowl contender until I can see Lamar do it in the playoffs. He just never has. Like right now, it really feels like Buffalo and Kansas City are your 1 and 2, and then after that, we'll see. Like Lamar's never been able to do it in the playoffs,
and it feels like there's a big divide between the 1 and the 2, right?
Yeah.
Like the Chiefs have a great record, but they've not looked good this year.
Not at all. Not at all. But
they're just winners. They're just winners, bro.
If there is a year where Baltimore can do it, this is it, because you have to run the ball and you have to be physical in the cold, and they've got Derrick Henry. So we'll see.
Right.
But, Kenny, that is going to wrap us up for this week. If you are watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. If you're listening via podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or any other platform, you can do the same there. You can also go to bluffcitymedia.co and check out all the articles, podcasts, and videos on the site. We appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.